Mr. President, Rosh Yeshiva, worthy rabbis, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Yeshiva University, it is my privilege to welcome you this evening to the third and final lecture of the three lectures comprising the Benjamin Gottesman Presidential Lectures in Jewish Thought. It is a special delight to acknowledge this evening the presence of Mr. and Mrs. Benjamin Gottesman and family. On behalf of all of us, I welcome Mr. and Mrs. Gottesman and wish to express publicly to them our deepest gratitude for helping make this evening possible. Tonight's lecture is also the Mrs. Tanya Soloveitchik and Dr. Samuel Soloveitchik Memorial Lecture, adding even more significance to what in any event is a spiritual and intellectual feat without parallel in this generation, namely a public address by the Rav. No introduction can do justice to our speaker this evening. One can, however, render kavod la Torah, and I can think of no more appropriate way to do so than to call upon the president of Yeshiva University, Rabbi Dr. Norman Lamb, who will introduce the Rav. President Lamb.
Kvod Moran Harav Shlita, distinguished guests, members of the Gottesman family, students, ladies and gentlemen. Actually, as Dean Lyman pointed out, these words of introduction are superfluous. They're unnecessary. Indeed, it's rather presumptuous for anyone to introduce the Rav to an assembly of Lomdei Torah and Shocharei Torah. But there's something special about this year's drasha, about this year's lecture. V'kidashtem eshnas hachamishim shana. We have to sanctify the 50th year, the Jubilee year, and this is the Jubilee year for the Soloveitchik family's connection with Yeshiva University. It was in 1929 that Hagan Reb Moshe Soloveitchik, Zecher Tzadik Lavrocha, came here to teach. And it is some 38 years, ad meya v'yesrim shana, that the Rav has been Marbitz Torah Barabim here at Yeshiva University. And therefore this is a special occasion, and that is my excuse, my apologia, for daring to presume upon the Rav and upon you to introduce him, albeit very briefly. The Zohar tells us in a most fascinating passage about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai on the day that he passed away, that by Hi Yomed Dabar Rabbi Shimon Le'estalik V'nolma, the day that Rabbi Shimon was about to depart from the world, Havar Mesadeh Miloi, he prepared himself, arranged his affairs, and Iskansu Chavrayo L'gabei Rabbi Shimon. The colleagues, the Chachamim, the students, disciples, came to pay their respects to their teacher. V'havamalyo Beisa, the house was full. There was no room to move. Zokaf Rabbi Shimon Einei V'choma L'karismalyo Beisa. Can you hear me? Rabbi Shimon, too much. Rabbi Shimon looked about and saw that the house was filled, whereupon Bocha Rabbi Shimon, he began to weep. And he said, there was another time that I was very, very sick. And at that time only one person came to visit me. V'havara Pinchas Bar Yoer Kamoi. The great disciple of Rab Shimon, Pinchas Bar Yoer, came to visit him. And at that time, Ischad Isha Kamoi. He was enveloped in fire. Ume Alman Loyes Pasak. And that flame never left him. Vahashta, but now I see something different. Now I see that Ispasik Now I see that the fire has left. There is no longer any fire. V'ha ismalya beisa, but the house is full. Rabbi Shimon wept when he saw that he now had great popularity, but there was no longer a fire. And he preferred the Ischad Isha to the Ismalya Beisa. In the contest between contents and fame, between passion and popularity, the Zohar clearly chooses Ischad Isha over Ismalya Beisa, better depth and content and profundity than mere popularity. I mention this because Ashreinu Uma Tov Chalkenu. How fortunate are we, not only in this yeshiva, but in all the city, in all the country, indeed in all the world. We have here distinguished guests from Israel as well. That this last Yovel, this last Jubilee, this last half century, and especially under the tutelage and leadership of the Rav, the last 38 years, we have not had to choose, because we have been blessed with both in the person of the Rav, Ischad Isha and Ismali Beisa. We have Ischad Isha, the Rav's depth, his Gaonis, his ever-growing creativity, which are legend. And at this point, Kol HaMosiv Godeya, I will say no more. And at the same time, Ismali Beisa, the recognition by a very grateful public, especially we of Yeshiva University, who are all of us, myself included, his Talmidim, was his Talmud, is his Talmud, and hopes to remain his disciple for many, many years to come. Our prayer for the Rav is a may alman lo espasik, that he may continue to be our teacher, to instruct us, guide us, and enlighten us for 120 years.
Thank you very much. I saw you have the mic. There is an echo, there's a feedback. It's impossible to hear. Because the topic is the Haftarot, which we read on the Sabbath and the Shabbat, between Pesach and Shavuos. I would like to analyze a few Haftarot and find the common link or the common denominator between the Haftarot and the parshiyos. The portion of prophets we read on the Shabbat and the Sabbath, Hashanah, of the Shabbat Hashanah, and holidays. This portion is supposed to address itself to an aspect which was mentioned in the Parsha, in the Kriyas Parsha. Maimonides distinctly and explicitly mentioned that the Haftarah should always concern itself with a motif which we found in the Parsha during the Kriya. At the end of his Siddur, he says, Mi mein ha-Parsha, a maftir must treat a topic which was already mentioned by the Parsha. In other words, there is a common denominator, requirement for a common denominator, for a common topic or motif in the Parshas Hayim, and in the Haftarah. Let me say, and you know it, you don't need my statement, that it is not always easy, it's not always simple to find similarity, let alone identity, of themes in the Haftarah and in the Parsha. It's very difficult sometimes. At times, we are simply baffled by the choice of a particular Haftarah which prima facie has absolutely nothing in common with the parsha. In such cases, an analysis in depth is indispensable. As a matter of fact, lately I simply it's just curiosity, perhaps it is just curiosity on my part, inquisitiveness, but I have tried in many cases to find this common denominator in certain parshas and the corresponding Haftaros. In some I have been very successful. Some I could not find. In some I couldn't find a common denominator, and I plead ignorance. It happened so that in Vayikra, and lately, while listening to the Haftarot recited by the Maftir, my thought was centered about this common motif or denominator in the Parsha and the Haftarot, and I arrived at certain conclusions, and which I would like to share with you tonight, and somehow, it is my survey, so it is a dobability, because the first part of my lecture will revolve about Yerushalayim and Kedushah Yerushalayim. Tomorrow night is Yom Yerushalayim. Is it so, or you have forgotten? I believe we have Mr. Corona. Is it tomorrow night Yom Yerushalayim? Yeah. All right. May I add that the results of such an investigation, such analysis in depth, are extremely gratifying. We gain insights, new insights into the Parsha and the Haftarot. At times, one sentence suffices to establish the unity of motifs in the Parsha and the Haftarot. One sentence. At times, one word. Whenever we detect the common motif in the Parsha and the Haftarot, we feel that a new light, in cases like that, a new bright light was cast upon the whole Parsha and the whole Haftarot. Permit me to present to you two analytical studies. Whether I'll be able to present to you the second, I don't know. It depends upon the clock. I can't see the clock here because of the lights. And be careful. I mean, one takes a risk if he comes into a hall where I'm lecturing without a watch. But anyway, the first one I hope in Yirtzeh Hashem to conclude. Yom Yerushalayim is associated with the first one. So that's Israel, it may stay, please. Permit me to present to you two analytical studies, embracing several Haftaros. We just finished reading. The first study will concern itself with four Haftaros. Acharei Mos and Kedoshim, Emor and Bechukosai. We just read it. Four Haftaros. The second one, I hope I'll have time to present to you, is concerned with Emor and Bechukosai. There is topical unity in the Haftarot of the Acharei Mos and Kedoshim and Emor and Bechukosai. There is also topical unity, thematic unity, in the Haftarot of Emor and Bechukosai. I mean, I ask for motion. Do you have a clue? That's too heavy. Yeah. Yeah. I wish to start with the Haftarot of Acharei Mos and Kedoshim. What Haftarah would I choose for Acharei Mos and Kedoshim if the choice had been left to me, of course? I would say that if the choice had been left to me, I would have selected two Haftarot. For Acharei Mos, the Haftarah in Yecheskel, Simen Chav Beis, 22, Vayidvar Hashem alai loimer, V'yato ben Odom, Asishpeit, is here Adomim, du son of man, thou son of man, you just sit in judgment over the city of bloodshed. Ve'daito is called Te'avesel, and you'll inform the people of the city about all the abominations they committed. It is most fitting for the parsha Acharei Mos. But the parsha Acharei Mos, the last parsha particularly, is concerned with sex sins, with chet harayos, and also shvichas damim, bloodshed. Now, v'dizore melech, it would be the proper Haftarah to be recited on the Shabbat of Acharei Mos and Kedoshim. Kedoshim I would recite a similar Haftarah also from Yecheskel, but treating the same topic. Vayidvar Hashem elai leimer, ben Odom daber al ziknei Yisrael, asishpeit esom, will you sit in judgment over them? Asishpeit ben Odom, estei aves avesom, will you sit in judgment over them because of the abominations which their parents or their ancestors were engaged or committed? Those are the proper Haftaros. As a matter of fact, in many Chumoshim they are printed, those Haftaros. In many Shiur, in many Bate Knesias, I discovered that still those two Haftaros are being recited and read. I mean, each one on its respective Shabbat. Chov on Acharei Mos, Chov Beis on Kedoshim. The Rambam in his Siddur, where he lists all the Haftaros, also as for Acharei Mos and Kedoshim, two Haftaros from Yecheskel. There's no problem. However, There are many communities, particularly in Lithuania, many communities, and also many poskim, who recommended that the Haftaros be replaced, the Haftaros from Yecheskel be replaced by an Haftarah from Amos, the first prophet. And instead of the Haftarah dealing with the Chet HaRayis, we should read the portion from of the prophecy by Amos on both Shabbatot, on Kedoshim and Acharei Mos. And in a leap year, if the year is a plain, so you read Acharei Mos Kedoshim at one time, so you read Kivnei Kishuim only once. However, if the year is a leap year, if it is a leap year, and Kedoshim and Acharei Mos are separated from each other, so then according to the Minhag Lite, and in accordance with many opinions of poskim, Gdele Achronim, you read Kivnei Kishuim twice. On Shabbos and Acharei Mos, as well as on the Shabbos of Kedoshim. Alei Kivnei Kishuim atem libnei Yisrael lumad Hashem. Alei es Yisrael leisi meretz Mitzrayim uflishti metafter va'arom mikir. We don't understand the relationship of that portion, of that prophecy to Acharei, to the laws and halachas, formulated in the parsha from Acharei Mos or Kedoshim. There is no similarity at all between the Haftarah and the parshiyos. What is the reason, actually? What is the reason? That we replace the Haftaros from Yecheskel with an Haftarah of Amos. Of course, there is no mystery. The answer is very simple. At least the first answer is simple. Then another question, rises, and we'll have difficulty in solving this question. There is no mystery at all. There is a Braise in Megillah, the end from Megillah, as well as in Masechet Sofrim, which quotes the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says, "Ein maftirin b'tei avis Yerushalayim." You should not recite the prophecies about Te'avis, the abominations of Yerushalayim, Kolika. You don't mention them at all. Neither for Acharei Mos nor for Kedoshim. Shouldn't. Maise be'echad, and the Masechet Sofrim, and as well as the Gemara, the Megillah, says, Maise be'echad, it happened that someone individual, or your Keirel Milo, Rabbi Eliezer, he was probably on the second floor, Rabbi Eliezer was on the street floor. Keirel Milo, Rabbi Eliezer. Geographically, as far as in spatial terms, he was above Rabbi Eliezer. B'tei avis Yerushalayim. He recited the maftir for Acharei Mos or Kedoshim, the Haftarah from B'tei avis Yerushalayim from Yecheskel. Omar le Rabbi Eliezer, so Rabbi Eliezer told him, Reiko, fool. You are so interested in to indict Yerushalayim of all crimes. Investigate your maternal background, the family tree. So the Masechet Sofrim says, and they found some psul as far as the mother is concerned. True. The Gemara in Megillah says la fuke mit Rabbi Eliezer. The halacha is not like Rabbi Eliezer. That's what the Gemara in Megillah says. But the Masechet Sofrim didn't say it. Masechet Sofrim quoted Rabbi Eliezer, and apparently because he's in full agreement with Rabbi Eliezer. That means according to Masechet Sofrim, is the halacha like Rabbi Lezer. So since the halacha is like Rabbi Lezer, so the two Haftaros from Yecheskel, Chof and Chof Beis, are ruled out, and they are replaced by another Haftarah, namely, to make a Shim from Amos. And as I said before, and we are so careful and meticulous about it, that in a leap year, we read the Haftarah of Amos twice. Only few Haftarahs are read and reread during the year, during the annual cycle. But here, a plain Haftarah is recited for Acharei Mos, and the same is recited for Kedushah. Of course, we have accepted Rabbi Lezer's opinion that a Jew who bought mafta for $25 has no right to criticize Jerusalem. He has no right to repeat the words of the Novi, of the prophet. And he should not charge Yerushalayim, the maftir, with crime, grave sins, and transgressions and abominations. He has no right. The question is, now, if you could state the question, so that's why we have replaced the Haftaros of Acharei Mos and Kedoshim as far as the Nevuah of Yecheskel is concerned. We don't recite it. Fine. Yeah. But there is still a question. I haven't answered. Uvayemos, correct. Uvayemos. You could have, it could have, Chazal, Chachmei Yisrael, could have chosen, selected another Haftarah, which has some similarity to the parshiyos Haftarah, which have something in common with the parshiyos Haftarah, with the Kriya. We have chosen the Haftarah of the first Novi, of the Amos, which prima facie, at first glance, has absolutely no relationship to whatever the Torah has formulated in Acharei Mos and Kedoshim. Not at all. At first glance, not a single sentence unites Amos with the parshiyos Kedoshim and Acharei Mos in the Torah. The answer, I believe, is obvious. It's not difficult. Both Sedras, between Acharei Mos and Kedoshim, told the people something which frightened them. They addressed to the people for the first time since they left Mitzrayim. For the first time, something frightening, horrifying. Namely what? That there is a possibility, and perhaps not only a possibility, but a probability or perhaps a certainty, that in the future they'll lose the land and they will be exiled from their ancestral land into an endless, bleak and dreary galut. That there is a reality which we call galut was disclosed to the people in Acharei Mos and Kedoshim for the first time. The Torah says for the first time, later the Torah repeated this warning. But the Acharei Mos and Kedoshim, the people to whom Acharei Mos and Kedoshim was revealed through Moshe, by HaKadosh Baruch Hu through Moshe, were taken aback. What did he hear? They heard a few sentences. which they did not understand well. And they got frightened. Very horrified. What happened? All those abominations. Were committed by the people of the land who preceded you. You're coming to the land. And the land became defiled. And the land should not vomit you out, cast you off. This is in Acharei Mos, Vayikra Chavtes Chavches. Then in Kedushah, Ushmartem es kol chukosai es kol mishpatai, v'asisem eisam, v'leisoki oretz, the same expression, the same idiom, leisoki oretz es eschem. The land will not throw you up, vomit you out. It's a very strange word. Asher ani mevi eschem shomer lo shemesbo, to which I brought you in order to live there for many, many, many years. But should you commit those abominations, so the land will simply shake you off. As a matter of fact, the Torah emphasizes that exile from the land, or departure from the land, in such a case, is a natural phenomenon, not a penalty. It is a phenomenon which can be explained in terms of cause and effect, in causal terms, could be understood. It's not a special einish imposed upon the Jewish people. But it is a result of certain behavior on the part of the people. It is almost, it fits into the scheme of causality, of cause and effect. The land in the world, the land does not tolerate immorality, particularly immorality of harayas and murder and bloodshed. And it casts off the people who defile themselves with such abominable deeds, the way Rashi says, a prince with a very delicate digestive system will throw up, if he'll be fed, food which are just slightly spoiled. Eretz Yisrael is a very delicate, a very tender land. It does not tolerate every avera. It does not tolerate it. It shakes them off. You don't have to be punished for that. It's simply the soil, the particles of the soil, shake off every avera. Rashi says, Moshul ben Melech, שיחלו דוב עמוז, שנעימת במאיוב, ומתי, כך ארץ ישראל אינו מקיימס עליו every avera. It's like Rashi says it. Like the prince who throws up if he was fed something which was spoiled, or not the best, finest quality. Because he has a delicate digestive system. So is Eretz Yisrael very sensitive. Certain averas in Chutzlaretz are different assessed than they would have been in Eretz Yisrael. Eretz Yisrael not a ben melochim, but a bas melech, but very, very delicate, very tender, very meticulous. And Galus is not a punishment. It is the natural consequence of chet. That's what Rashi wanted to explain. No. So what? Then this the people had for the first time. That Eretz Yisrael casts out sinners, or those who defile themselves and defile the land with their deeds. Is according, so wouldn't you say that the Chachomim who actually, dealt with this problem of an Haftarot to choose the proper Haftarot for Acharei Mos and Kedoshim, faced, what shall I say, a dilemma? There were two possibilities. One possibility is that the topic, that the theme of Kedoshim and Acharei Mos should be, the laws pertaining to Arayas, to Avodah, to Melech, in Kedoshim, the laws pertaining to Shabbos, to Kibud Avoim. You could have found such a prophecy or a portion which would correspond, which would run parallel to those basic laws which are mentioned in Kedoshim or Acharei Mos. The Rashi at the beginning of Kedoshim says, this parsha includes Gufei Torah, the very tenets of our Torah. So it was quite possible, to choose some chapter in Isaiah or Yecheskel or in any other book of prophets which would correspond, would run parallel to the Gufei Torah which were formulated in Kedoshim as well as in Emor. There is this is one alternative, one possibility. But the Chacham had another possibility, namely, to declare as the central theme in Acharei Mos and Kedoshim is Galus. The central theme consists in this sentence, V'leisoki yoret eschem. We have the Maftir has got to react to that theme, to the theme of Galus, which was new, something new and incomprehensible to them. The Chachomim had the choice either to prefer the Gufei Torah and declare them as the central theme of Kedoshim, and then fashion the Haftarah in accordance with the Gufei Torah, important mitzvahs. Ishavi mitiro v'shapseiset ishmeru v'solim pulasocher itrach ha-beker v'afta v'reacha kamecha v'yereis ma'adishem elekecha. Those laws, tenets, principles of morality, the basic principles of our morality, could have become the central theme of Kedoshim, and the Haftarah would have been fashioned in accordance with those principles, would correspond to those principles. However, the Chachamim decided differently. If the Haftarah halachic is nekeshuyim at Beis Yisrael is accepted, so what is the central theme? What is the central theme of Acharei Mos and Kedoshim? What? Galus. And how to avoid it? The Haftarah should answer how to avoid Galus. How not to be trapped by Galus. Not to be confronted by that curse of Galus. And if Chachman Islam, Chas v'Sholem, the Jew should be exiled from his land, how to get back to the land. And that is why Chazal chose the Haftarah from Amos. He gives the answer, Amos. Before Isaiah and before Yirmiyahu, before Isaiah and before Yirmiyahu, and before Yecheskel, Amos proclaimed the emunah, our faith, in Shivas Bnei Agil Eretz Israel, in the return of our people from captivity to Eretz Israel. And they chose the Haftarah of Amos, the portion of Amos, from Amos' prophecy, which is most characteristic for the Leisoki Oretz. I mean, most characteristic and the most direct, which has a direct, I would say, a direct approach to the curse of Galus, which was mentioned, I mean, in the parsha. Veshafti yeshvu sami Yisrael, and I'll return, I mean, from captivity, my people Israel. Uvonu horim nishames, and they'll build waste cities or desolate cities for Yoshvu, and they'll settle there. V'notu kromim v'shos le'esyenam, and they'll plant vineyards and they'll drink the wine out. Untatim al admosam, I'll plant them on their land, but this time a little in a different manner than I planted them before. V'le'yinotshu eid mal admosam, they will not be removed from the soil, which I shall settle them. Isn't this the answer to Leisoki Oretz Eschem? Kasher Kikios Agei Asher Lifnechem? Isn't Amos the answer? Is Amos main a parsha or not? Of course he's main a parsha. Galus is, God will not destroy the people. He may cast out these people from their land for a short while, yet will bring them back from captivity. They will after a painful absence strike roots again in the land, and will never be severed from the land. Could you tell me what motivated Chachmei Chazal to choose just one pasuk in Kedushah and have the Haftarah revolve about this pasuk, instead of selecting the Gufei Torah in Kedushim and in Emor and find the appropriate Haftarah which will fit those Gufei Torah. You all know why it is so, why it is so. Because the people in the time of Chazal, needed support and encouragement. And particularly, they had to believe that all the persecutions, that the Galus is just a temporary, transient phenomenon. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will finally bring them back. The emunah, the Beis HaMashiach, would have been undermined if Chazal hadn't selected the last pasuk in Amos as the response to the warning of Galus which Moshe addressed to the people. Yes, the people might be exiled, they might lose the land and everything which they cheered and everything which was dear and holy to them, but this is just transient phenomenon. They'll come back to the land, and whatever they lost will be recovered. And of course, Galus is bad, even if it's transient and short-lived, just a short experience. However, the final destiny of the Jew will be fulfilled the way Amos foresaw and Amos predicted. At this point, we encounter the very principle which lies at the root of the Haftarah institution in general. The life. See, we have two institutions. We have Kedusha and we have the Novi. What's the difference in those two institutions? Kedusha was introduced in order to acquaint the people with the Torah, to acquaint them with the laws. You know, in the time of Chachmei Talmud, they had a Churban who used to explain and tell them what the laws are. This is first. The Haftarah was introduced for a different reason. As far as the law is concerned, is a Novi Rashay L'Chadesh Dover. A Novi cannot add anything, to the system of law which was given to us by HaKadosh Baruch Hu through Moshe, through Moses. The institution of Haftarah was introduced for a different purpose. Namely, what? To strengthen the faith of the people in the final redemption and the final return to Eretz Yisrael of the Knesset Yisrael. In one word, the Haftarah reminds the people of Bias HaMashiach. And if you want, you may ask me, how did I arrive at this conclusion? What do you say? Because if you read of the brachos of the Haftarah, so you will realize immediately that all the brachos revolve, circle around one article of faith. Remember, ודובר אחד מדבריך אוכל לישו ריקו. כאילו מלחנם ורחמנתו, whatever you promised will come true. That the great eschatological messianic promise will finally be realized, no matter how difficult times were, no matter how difficult it was to believe in the final restoration of all glory and the fulfillment of all hopes. But nevertheless, in spite of all the difficulties, the promise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to his people will come true. And here was the problem. On the one hand, the people listened to Kedusha, and the people got frightened. They couldn't understand. The land to which they are marching, after all they were on their march from Mitzrayim to Eretz Yisrael, will be given to them just for a short while. If they should commit sins, and they knew very well that sins are going to be committed, the man is very limited in his freedom, in his choice. If they should commit sins, they will be cast off, or cast out of the land. They will be vomited out. So why Mitzrayim? Why Yetzias Mitzrayim? Why Matan Torah? They couldn't understand it. And nor could, the people, the contemporaries of the Chachmei Talmud understand. So that's why the prophecy by Amos was introduced, to tell the people, no matter how bad Galus is, and no matter how severe the punishment will be, no matter of fact there would be no need to punish. It's a natural consequence. Galus is a natural consequence of sin. Sin in Eretz Yisrael somehow are mutually exclusive. Yes. No matter how difficult, the final destiny will be realized, and those destiny will be, the Jew will be planted in Eretz Yisrael, not for a short time, not as a transient, but just as a temporary guest or visitor in Eretz Yisrael, that will be planted in a manner that will become a part of the land, and will never be removed from the land. In the interest The whole Haftarot serves this purpose, to assure the Jew of the final realization of all the promises given to him by God. And this was the best place where the Jew should have been reminded that in spite of the martyrdom we will have to experience, the final destiny of ours, which is combined with Eretz Israel, will be fulfilled and realized. So what is the main parsha as far as Acharei Mos and Kedoshim are concerned? What's the main parsha? Where is it the parallelism? The similarity? Galus and Geulah. Temporary Galus and permanent Geulah. If you take the Pesach and Acharei Mos and Kedoshim and you compare it with the few psukim in Amos, so you arrive that the main parsha consisted in having assured the people that the Galus will be short, the Geulah will be forever. And may I add something personal? It took me months until I unraveled that. I couldn't understand. Finally it dawned upon me. This is the law. This is the last part of Amos. That's what made this parsha, so to say, which converted actually the Haftarot, instead of condemning the people for abominations, the Novi, brings words of solace and encouragement and faith to the people. Now I'm expecting a question. Expecting a question. It was alright? Is everything so smooth that there's not a single question? Because Galus is mentioned twice in Acharei Mos and Kedoshim. So we read the same Haftarot on the Shabbos of Acharei Mos and the Shabbos of Kedoshim. We don't want that the warning of Galus be read without reacting or without responding to it. And that's why the very moment we read about the good possibility of Galus, we right away, because the so-called Pesach is at the end of the parshiyos, at the end of Acharei Mos and the end of Kedoshim. Right away we respond. Yes, it will happen. But God will return the people from captivity to Eretz Israel. And that time, forever. They'll stay in Eretz Israel forever. I want you to know, I'm not speaking like a Zionist. I don't preach Zionism. This has nothing to do with Zionism. This is Gufa Shel Torah. There is another problem which you have to solve. Namely, the Novi did not say how the Jews will come back. What will make them return? And the Novi did not tell us whether or not the land will wait for us. Perhaps the land will not wait for us. To be occupied, invaded, cultivated, and developed into a civilized country without our participation. It was a historical possibility. how is a return to the land which vomited out its inhabitants 1900 years ago because they defiled themselves and as well as her possible? How is such a return is possible? Does the land wait so long for our children to come back the way a loving mother who waits the return of her child, of her only child? Or the land is not as tender, not as loving as a mother is? What guarantees the return of the children to the land? There's a question that basically is a double question. Does the land wait for her children? Do the children want to come back? It's a double question. It's not a one question. There's no answer in Amos about it. There's no answer. Amos there is promise, pledge, Haftarot, yes. But Amos does not explain to us. How? What is the guarantee? What will make the bond so permanent, strong between people and land? What is responsible for the patience which the Knesset Israel on the one hand and the land, Eretz Israel on the other hand, will wait or will expect the return of the children to the land? I believe that this answer lies in our halachic category. This is my opinion. I have thought about it a lot. I believe this is to be found, the answer is to be found in our halachic category. Namely, what would you suggest? Which category? In our halachic term. Namely, what? What guarantees? Where is the document, the star? I say halachic term. I mean, it's a very simple word. I mean, I haven't discovered anything new. Namely, that somehow our rights to Eretz Israel, we have rights, that's at least what we say. We have the right to the land. We are the rightful owners of the land. As well as our right to the Beis HaMikdash, to the Harabais, or to Yerushalayim. And by the way, and again, it's not Zionism, it's Torah Shabbat Peh. Let me say, according to the halacha, Yerushalayim is not a city. It's called Yer David, yes. But al pi halacha, it is not a city. Yerushalayim is a part of the Beis HaMikdash. It's the one Kedusha. Shorish Machlis in Israel. In the Midbar, the people were divided into three camps. Machne Yisrael, the camp of the Israelites, of the ordinary Jews. Machne Levi, Levio, or the camp of the Levites. And finally, Machne Shechina, the camp where God resides. Yerushalayim is Machne Yisrael, it's a part of the Beis HaMikdash. Our claims to Yerushalayim are not only based on the promise which the Almighty gave to Abraham with regard to Eretz Israel, not only on that promise, but it also means based upon the parshiyos, the Shichni Tidrishu Vasa Shama. You detect the place where he resides, and to that place you'll be coming. With Yerushalayim is actually there are two Kedushas to Yerushalayim. Kedusha Seoret, the Kedusha which pervades the entire land, its entire topography and geography. And secondly, Kedusha HaMikdash. The Kedusha which pervades the Harabais as well as Yerushalayim. different types. Is Eretz Yisrael our right to Eretz Yisrael as a land, or to Yerushalayim as not only as a city, but as a part of the Beis HaMikdash? Our right to both the land as well as Yerushalayim is based upon one word, Kedusha. Without Kedusha, we have no right. If someone should deny Kedushah Eretz, or should deny Kedushah Yerushalayim, we say the land is a land like any other territory. Yerushalayim is just a city, and the Habayis is just a hill, or nowadays it is a valley. You go downstairs in order to get to the Habayis. But there is nothing unique. There is nothing singular about it. The land in Yerushalayim. So by making that statement, he forfeits all rights to Yerushalayim and to the Beis HaMikdash. It's a question of Kedusha. Now there is a plain problem with which the Balatesians preoccupy themselves, as well as many Rishonim, but the most outstanding Rishon who actually introduced a new concept, a new perspective with regard to that problem of Kedusha is Maimonides. The Rambam. Excuse me, I'm assimilated. You can't resist Galus. There is a question, I'm trying to develop Maimonides' idea, but I'll change the vocabulary a little bit. There is a question which should be formulated properly and answered courageously. Are Churban and Kedusha, two good words, but two words in the Hebrew language, Churban and Kedusha, two mutually exclusive categories, two opposites? They contradict each other? Desolation and the presence of Kedusha are mutually exclusive, are two opposites, because Kedusha resides in binyan, in beautiful architecture, in orderliness, in wholesomeness, and in prosperity. Desolation, debris, ruins, ashes, terminate all kinds of Kedusha, and the exalted disappears under the ruins and the debris. Ashes covers up Kedusha, and the Kedusha vanishes. This is one approach. Halachically. All the reverse is true. All the reverse is true, is correct. Kedusha tolerates Churban. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu can reside not only in the beautiful Beis HaMikdash, but on the desolate mount, Al-Hatzin Shishomim, Shuolim Hilchobah. He can reside on the desolate mount, where the foxes come up and down, walk up and down. He can be covered with ashes and debris, and still reside in that particular spot, which is frightening as far as desolation is concerned. The problem, the halachic problem. Strange, this problem was picked up in the Torah, in the Bechukosai, in the parsha which we just read last Shabbos. There is a strange pasuk in the Exile. V'nesati esorechem chor, and I'll make your towns desolate. V'ashimesi es mikdashechem, and I'll make your sanctuaries, or your Bate Mikdash, desolate. V'leviach bereach mechechem, v'ashimesi ani yisraetz, v'shomu olei evechem, hayeshvim bo. And I will make your cities a waste, and will bring your sanctuaries into desolation. And I will bring the land into desolation. And your enemies that will dwell thereof will be astonished. But let us just select 3 words. Vashimesi es mikdashechem. And I'll make your sanctuaries waste or desolate. You just read it. This phrase, Vashimesi es mikdashechem, lends itself to double interpretation. Interpretation number 1. Your sanctuaries will be in a state of desolation, and in consequence, the Kedusha will be terminated, since waste and holiness, desolation and exaltedness are mutually exclusive. Vashimesi es mikdashechem, I'll destroy physically your sanctuaries, completely destroyed, just debris, ashes, dumping places. And by destroying the physical sanctuaries, I'll destroy the idea of Kedusha, which hovered over them. There will be no Mikdashechem anymore, because Shimon and Mikdash, as I said before, are mutually exclusive. I shall make your Mikdashim a waste. Of course, this is the negative interpretation. This can be interpreted in the positive as well. I'll destroy physically your body Mikdash, even though, nevertheless, there will remain Mikdash, in spite of everything. So actually there are 2 pshatim, 2 interpretations. What's your opinion, the right interpretation? I mean, I don't mean the interpretation you like. Only from the standpoint of Torah Shabbat, which one is the right? Yeah, I know that I have your endorsement, your agreement with that. Yeah, I couldn't decide between 2 interpretations without quoting a Gemara. The Gemara helps out sometimes. The Gemara is very helpful. The Mishnah in Megillah, I believe it's one of the last Mishnahs in Megillah, says, Beis HaKnesses a Beis HaKnesses which was destroyed, was consumed by fire, or desecrated by our enemies. Just debris, a heap of debris and ruins. So all the laws pertaining to Beis HaKnesses, what applies not only to Beis HaKnesses, which is built, but to Beis HaKnesses to which is in desolation, in a state of waste. Sheneema, the Mishnah says, Vashimesi es mikdashechem, achal pi sheshenem in heimel, even though they are desolate, the Kedusha ememdi, the Kedusha has not disappeared, has not vanished. Kedusha is not frightened by holiness. The Rambam, in Milches Bet HaBchira, developed the idea that Kedusha HaMikdash, which was introduced by King Solomon, by Shlomo HaMelech, continued throughout the ages and the millennia to hover over the Yerushalayim and the Har HaBayis. And Kedusha Risheno, Kitchel Shaito, the Kitchel Asidrove. The first Kedusha is Shlomo's, King Solomon's Kedusha, or David's Kedusha. I don't know exactly who consecrated the Beis HaMikdash, Shlomo or David. We really don't know that, but it doesn't matter as far as we are concerned. Throughout the millennia, since the first Kiddush, the Kedusha prevailed, regardless of the fact that so many years, the Beis HaMikdash, for so many years, the Beis HaMikdash has been in a state of desolation. Physical desolation does not cancel the category, it does not eliminate Kedusha and exaltedness. The exaltedness of the place, why? And the Rambam asks himself, why? Why do I say so? Why do I say so? Why does it, as a matter of fact, with regard to Kedusha So'oretz, to the holiness of the land, to the sanctity of the land, the Rambam is of the opinion that the Kedusha which was introduced by Yeshua was discontinued at the time of Nebuchadnezzar, when his legions occupied Eretz Yisrael, invaded Eretz Yisrael. So why Kedusha Shlomo was not discontinued, was continued throughout the ages? And Kedusha Yeshua was discontinued throughout the ages? It was discontinued? So the Rambam answers, you all know the answer. It's Kedusha So'oretz, in the time of Yeshua, was based upon power, upon military victory, upon conquest. Yeshua was strong, he conquered the land, he consecrated the land, and hallowed the land. Nebuchadnezzar was stronger, he conquered the land, he put an end to the Kedusha So'oretz. But Beis HaMikdash, he says, Eino elo mipnei hashchina. The fact that Beis HaMikdash is called is not because somebody conquered the Beis HaMikdash, because of military conquest, but because the Shechina abides on that particular spot. U'shchina in optilo leilo. The Shechina can never be removed from that particular spot. V'are'emer v'ashemesius mikdashechem omru chachomim af al pi sheshemim imheim b'kdushosam hale. True, God abides in both, in binyan as well as in churban. Kedusha and churban are not conflicting ideas. God abides in splendor and in grandeur, in the vast stretches of the universe, of course, as well as in the desolation, loneliness, bleakness of the Har HaBayis throughout the ages. It was a beautiful universe with endless, uncharted lanes. And all that is just the abode of God. Why should he reside on a lonely mountain or hill, which, covered with ashes and debris? Why should God not move away from that particular spot? Apparently God has a different approach. He resides in the universe, he resides in a small place, which is bleak and dreary, for which for 1900 years has stood alone, lonely, without hope. God refused to leave the spot on which his house once stood. The sanctity of that spot continued throughout ages. So the Mishnah and the Rambam, he quotes the Mishnah, have decided that Vashimesis Mikdashechem should be interpreted in Torah into the positive. It means even though they are desolate, there is desolation, it's still the Kedushah ending. The Kedusha continues. Now let me ask you, why did the Chachamim interpret like that? Why did the Chachamim interpret like that? Yes? Why? What prompted them to interpret like that? Perhaps Shemesius Mikdashechem means I'll simply destroy your sanctuaries, and the idea of Kedusha and exaltedness will vanish. So just the land, Yerushalayim and the Harabayis will be just as holy as any other spot, or just as profane as any other spot in the world, in the universe. I will say, yeah, but the question is correct, Amari. But however, if the Mishnah in Megillah said so, and the Rambam accepted, and the Rambam also quoted the Mishnah in Megillah, is apparently there is a reason, and that reason has got to be found in Chumash. Or not in Chumash, exactly, in Torah Exile, which prompted our scholars, our rabbis, to interpret Vashimesis Mikdashechem in a positive sense, not in a negative sense. What forced them? Yes, but what about the Chumash? It might be. I believe. What was I don't know. If Amos was the answer, I wouldn't have asked him. There's got to be, this answer has got to be developed in basic terms, in our outlook upon the world, in our perspective, in our world perspective. I believe, on the last Shabbos when you heard the Maftir of Bechukosai, did you ask yourself what is the link between the Maftir of Bechukosai and the Parsha of Bechukosai? The same question which I raised with regard to Amos, I raised the question, what has got Amos, what has got the Haftarot, Adishem Uzi, this was the Haftarot last Shabbos, got to do with the parsha where the Teichache is made, was formulated. What? If you ask me, 3 words in the parsha, 6 words in Yom. If you have Acharei Vayikra, open up the book, the Vayikra, and please cast a glance on the Haftarot. There are 6 words, strange words, but those 6 words have influenced our Chazal, our rabbis, to interpret the Vashimesis as Mikdashchem, Afal Pisheshem or Brushasem in enthusiastically, and in terms of our Emunah in the future of Eretz Yisrael and Yerushalayim. What? 6 words. 6 words. And that's why this Haftarah was chosen. This portion of the prophet was chosen, Yom was chosen to be the Haftarah of Bechukosai, Behar and Bechukosai. What? No, you are guessing. Correct. There is a strange puzzle. Correct. It was said already. Oh, I'll let you finish. Yeah, we read a very strange sentence. Kisei kovet, maron rishon, mekei mikdoshenu, mikvei Yisrael rato. The throne of glory on high. And it happens that the traditional translation is pretty good here. The throne of glory on high, from the beginning, the place of our sanctuary, the hope of Israel, O Lord. What does it mean? Kisei kovet, Emor and Bechukosai, the Kisei kovet which was established from the very beginning, mekei mikdoshenu, the abode of our sanctuary, mikvei Yisrael, we are the hope of Israel. What idea did Anavi express or formulate in this short 6-word sentence, which have such great importance for the interpretation of Hashemay and Beis HaMikdash? What idea? I mean, you all know the idea. I call this idea the double image theory. The double image theory. It's not, don't get frightened, it's not philosophy. Double image theory. The word double image theory, I derived the term. It's my term. I haven't plagiarized anybody. The double image theory, I derived this term from a story of Chumash, which you all know. There's a story of Chumash about Jacob, who stopped over for the night in a certain place, when he saw the ladder, standing on the ground, reaching the skies, heavens, and the angels of God were climbing up and descending along this ladder. So the Gemara in Chur says, they go down to Jacob, the real Jacob, the physical Jacob, who is tackling with used Ukraine, and they take a good look at his face, at his countenance, at his body. Is he good looking, isn't he? Who is tackling with used Ukraine, and they go up to heaven, and they take another look. But this time not at the physical Jacob. Physical Jacob is sleeping. What's sleeping? At the Jacob whose image was engraved in the Kisyakom. That's what Rashi says in Chur. So in other words, each Jew has 2 images. The image from the matter, the physical image, and the image of the mind. The image which is engraved in the Kisyakom. And not only people have a double image. Any institution in Yahadus has a double image. Shabbos. So what it's a day of rest. So the Medrash tells us, Rabbi Lemke mentioned Zayah, so I have to mention too now. The Zayah, I believe in the Akdami or Vayikra, I don't remember exactly, says, V'shabseisai tishmeo. So Ahu Taya, the Bedouin, met Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, the Bedouin, the famous Bedouin, who was acquainted, he's called Aterekula. This Bedouin met Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai and asked him, why is the Shabbos mentioned in the plural, not in the singular? Shabseisai tishmeo. So Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai didn't know. So the Bedouin began to deliver a shiur about it. And finally, the consequence of that treatise, which the Bedouins developed the idea that Shabbos has 2 images too. One image, Shabbos Miletata, and Shabbos Leilo. 2 images. 2 different images. Whoever, and I believe there are many Chassidim here, even though lately they stopped saying Kehuna, but there are some here who say Kehuna. The whole idea of the double image of Shabbos is actually, expressed in Kehuna. If you'll next time, Friday night, you'll pay attention to what you're saying. And basically, it's not a Zayah. It's more than a Zayah. It's a Mishnah in Tomit. That the Leviim used to say Shiur every day. They had a different psalm, a different Shiur. On Shabbos, Oyimrim, Mizmor Shir Le'im HaShabbos, Lovei Le'yem Shekulei Shabbos, U'menucha L'chayei Lamed. Why? And I heard once my father, in the name of Reb Chaim, that the Nevi'im used to say so, actually. They used to say on Shabbos, Mizmor Shir Le'yem HaShabbos, the beginning of the psalm, and then they used to conclude, Mizmor Shir Le'yem HaShabbos, Le'yem Shekulei Shabbos, U'menucha L'chayei Lamed. Again, there are two Shabbatot, two Shabbos. There are Shabbos Le'sato. This is a day in the week on which a Jew has to abstain from work, and have a different, and adopt a different lifestyle. But it's an ordinary Shabbos. It's a day on which you don't work, and that's all. And the day on which you study Torah, correct? Because the Shabbos is consecrated to the study of Shabbat. But that's all. But there's a Shabbos Leila. Shabbos Abba. The Shabbos Leila is Le'yem Shekulei Shabbos, a day which is, whose entirety and the very essence is Shabbos, Shekulei Shabbos. And it will express itself in a variety of ways, in particular in Menucha L'chayei Lamed. So basically it's a Mishnah, even though I may call your attention. Rashi and Rosh Hashanah differs with Reb Chaim in the Pshat. L'yem Shekulei Shabbos Menucha L'chayei Lamed. So if you look up the Rashi and Rosh Hashanah, in Rulu Bezdin, so you'll find that I was wrong. But anyway, in Shabbos we have the two ideas. Of Shabbos Le'sat or Shabbos Le'im. You know very well that as far as Beis HaMikdash and Yerushalayim are concerned, there is certainly a double image theory. Who doesn't know of Yerushalayim Shel Mata and Yerushalayim Shel Ma'ala? Even Zionists know about it. Who doesn't know of Beis HaMikdash Shel Ma'ala and Beis HaMikdash Shel Mata? It's mentioned in Yoshia. Migdash ad Hashem kein yodecho, ad Hashem yimrach le'lam lo'el. Where is all that mentioned? In Yirmiyahu in our Haftarot. Kisei koved, or Kisa koved, the throne of glory, Emor and Bechukosai, from the very beginning, even before the beginning, is Mekei Migdashenu. When a Jew speaks about the Beis HaMikdash, he has in mind not the brick and the mortar, and the sand, and the gold in the Beis HaMikdash. This is not the Beis HaMikdash. Beis HaMikdash Olamato. There is another Beis HaMikdash. Kisei koved Emor and Bechukosai, which is Mekei Migdashenu. There is a Beis HaMikdash Olamato. And that is why Mikveh Yisrael, we have hope in Thee, Almighty. That is the reason why Vashimesi Aniyas Migdashechem, it was interpreted in positive terms, not in negative terms. Why is that Alpish Shem Migdashah so many? Yeah, the enemy could have destroyed, indeed destroyed, everything. But not the Beis HaMikdash Shel Ma'ala. The Emor and Bechukosai Mekei Migdashenu. And as long as the Mekei Migdashenu exists, so the Shekhinah resides, not only L'mayla, but L'mata as well. And if the Shekhinah resides, is Mikveh Yisrael. So we have hope that everything will be restored. And the people will return, and that neither the land will forget her children, nor will the children forget her mother. This pasuk, Kisei koved Emor and Bechukosai, Mekei Midoshenu Mikveh Yisrael. And it's very strange that the Techoche, which speaks of Hashemeses Mikdashechem, is accompanied by the Nevuah of Yirmiyahu, what was the prophet of Churban, of desolation, but still he told the people, don't worry, there'll be Churban, there'll be desolation, many things will be destroyed, but not the Mekei Mikdoshenu. And as long as the Mekei Mikdoshenu is more in the Rishon, is the Mikveh Yisrael will not disappoint you. And that's why the Haftarot of the Bechukosai was chosen. This chapter in Jeremiah was chosen as the Haftarot of the Bechukosai. Because without that chapter of Jeremiah, without this 6-word sentence, I would have said that Hashemeses Mikdashechem should be interpreted in the narrative. I'll destroy not only the physical structure, but the Kedusha as well. What saved the Hashemeses Mikdashechem is this 6-word sentence, Kisi Kovid, More in the Rishon, Mekei Mikdoshenu. So very strange. Now, Acharei Mos and Kedoshim started his work. It's the problem of Galus. Amos, we recited Amos, who tells the people, what does he actually, the synopsis of Amos' message. Don't be frightened. You might lose Eretz Yisrael for a while, short a while, or sometimes for a long time. But the final destiny of the people of Israel, of the Knesset Israel, will be fully realized. You will come back. And then the land will be yours forever. And we are not satisfied with Amos' answer. We ask, where is the guarantee? Who is the Oreb, so to say? Who endorses the promise? So we come to where? From Acharei Mos and Kedoshim to Emor and Bechukosai. Where is the endorsement of that? This is in Behar, the story about Yirmiyahu, who bought real estate, purchased the field from his uncle on the day on which Yerushalayim was attacked by Nebuchadnezzar, and God gave him and he gave his uncle, his uncle gave him two documents, 2 deeds, the Chosum and the Goloi, the mysterious deed, and the plain deed. And the Novi said, Eidi Knusodei Sukromim Gore Yerushalayim. And particularly what was important is the sentence, Kisei Koveid, More Merishein, Mekei Mikdoshenu, Mikveh Yisrael Adeshem. This is actually the guarantees in the double image theory of the Migdosh Lemato, Migdosh Lemato. That's it. So is Acharei Mos and Kedoshim, state the fact that Israel will come back to Eretz Yisrael from captivity, explains, the reasons why we believe we so strongly believe in return of the children to Eretz Yisrael is because of the 6-word sentence, Kisi Kovid More Merishein, Mekei Mikdoshenu, Mikveh Yisrael. That means the one unit, Acharei Mos and Kedoshim, and Bechukosai is one unit. There is fright of Galus, there is consolation, and then in Jeremiah explains to us what is the reason. What guarantee do you have that the Beis HaMikdash in Eretz Yisrael will be restored? And the guarantee is Mekei Mikdoshenu. Kisi Kovid More Merishein, Mekei Mikdoshenu. Now, Next. There is another Haftarah in Parshas Vayikra, in the Sefer Vayikra, and which is accompanied as usual by a Haftarah. And the question as far as this Haftarah is concerned is not so much about the common denominator. As a matter of fact, not only do they have a common motif, they're almost identical. The Parsha and the Haftarah are almost identical. And I would like to gain a few insights into the Haftarah, because there is a problem. So what is new about it? I mean, the Navi repeats exactly what the Torah said. Which Haftarah do you have in mind? Which one? I don't hear. Emor, correct. Emor, if you open up the Chumash and you study the Haftarah from Emor, it's a repetition, almost verbatim repetition of the Torah from Exile. So the question now is the reverse. Why was it chosen? Another Haftarah should have been chosen, but here is simply a repetition. See, of course, this problem doesn't bother me, but I believe that I would like to explain to you the Haftarah of Emor, and what did this Haftarah do with regard to our final hope of Gulas Yisrael. The Haftarah of Parshas Emor is almost a repetition of the text of the Torah. However, a thorough analysis will yield interesting conclusions. First, let me ask you a simple question. The book of Vayikra, particularly the Parshas Emor, deals almost exclusively with the laws pertaining to Kehunah, to Kehunah. It is called Teras Kehunah. It's called Teras Kehunah. So Yechezkel in his prophecies, quite a number of prophecies, repeats the laws of Kehunah. I mean, those laws with regard to which the kohen has a different, is commanded, those laws which the kohen is commanded to fulfill, in contrast with the Yisrael who is not duty bound to comply with those laws. I don't have to tell you what I have in mind. Now, but if you start reading the Haftarah of Yechezkel, will somebody read the Pesach of Yechezkel? You just read the Pesach of Yechezkel. It's so cool. והקנים אהובי בני צדק אשר שומרו משמרת מקדושי ביסייס בני ישראל מעולי הם יקרבו עלי לשורסני הם יביאו על מקדושי והם יקריבו על שולחני לשורסני ושומרו את משמרת. When you heard the person, and if you open a Chumash and read it carefully, there is one difference between Emor, and I'm not speaking about the differences which Chazal already dealt with. This is Chazal already they dealt with this problem. Yes. But I'm dealing with something else. The book of Vayikra, the Sefer of Emor, is a code of laws. Is a code. where the laws pertaining, the special laws pertaining to the Kohen were formulated by the Torah, correct? In particular, the laws which are related to the Kohen personally, not as far as the Kohen is meaning, as far as the ministrations of the Kohen unto the Almighty, but as far as the person of the Kohen is concerned. And so forth. This is in Emor. The pasuk in the Haftarot starts with what? V'akenim halvim b'nei tzaddik asher shomru mishmeres mikdoshai v'seis b'nei Yisrael me'olai Emor yikrevu alai l'shoseni Emor yuveyu al mikdoshai. And whoever studies Yechezkel carefully, in the previous chapter, Yechezkel tells us the following story, that many Kohanim have betrayed the Kehunah, and they walked away from the Kehunah. Many became defiled with avodah zarah. Many because they intermarried, or they married women who were not qualified to marry a kohen, and so forth. But there was a Bnei Tzaddik, a family of Kohanim called Bnei Tzaddik, who were committed, totally committed to the law, to the Torah, and to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when all the people, the says Bnei Israel, who went astray, the says Bnei Israel, they remained steadfast in their commitment, and they continue to live like Kohanim the way the Torah has required of them. The says Bnei Israel, Kohanim alvim b'nei tzaddik, asher shomru mishmeres mikdoshai, which, not so much guarding the Beis HaMikdash. There was no Beis HaMikdash to be guarded. There were 70 years between of whom there was. We say Asher Shomas Mikdoshah means they lived in accordance with the law. B'teis b'nei Yisrael alai. At a time when the people of Israel, many, the majority, separated and themselves from me and they went astray. What Yechezkel is saying is something very important. Emor contains the laws of Kehunah, the law of Kehunah, the law. Yechezkel in the Haftarot to Emor is speaking about Kehunah as a promise, that Kehunah will not disappear. That Kehunah will exist, who will continue forever. Because I want you to know, Kehunah is not just a matter for Nesias Kapayim, or for being called out. But it's about Kehunah, we don't have in mind only Nesias Kapayim. Nesias Kapayim is a mitzvah, correct. But there is something more than Nesias Kapayim. There is something more than being called out, for Torah. Kehunah is a part of Kedushah Yisrael. Am Yisrael, the people of Israel, the nation, is Amot Lisoy, the Gemara says. Is a three-structured or threefold community. Amot Lisoy, a threefold nation. It is Cain, Levi, Israel. And this is a part of the Kedusha, of Kedushah Yisrael. That within Kedushah Yisrael, we have 3 degrees of Kedusha. Kedushas Kehuna, Kedushas Levi, and Kedushas Yisrael. And if there is an institution which is exposed to defilement and to disintegration, this is the institution of Kehuna. Already when Ezra came back from Babel, so you read in Ezra and Nehemiah about Ezra's struggles, efforts to restore the old Kehuna, because the people in Babel intermarried into Gentile families. They intermarried as far as Psulei Kehuna are concerned. where the children, and of course the intermarriage, whether the secular Jews who want to like it or dislike it, intermarriage affects the status of a child. Some children are going. Some children are mamzeret. Some children are chalolim. I mean, you can't help it. This is the law. But, of course, I mean, after they had been exiled from Eretz Israel, and they lost control over marriages, Kehunah, Leviah, and ordinary Kedushas Israel in Babel, so they actually, I mean, lost control over Kedushas Israel. And many Kohanim were put aside, and they were told they cannot minister into the Almighty in the Beis HaMikdash, nor were they permitted to eat Trumah. And you read in Ezra and Nehemiah, Adamit Kein Urim Latumim, those people cannot be identified as Kohanim, they'll have to wait for the Melech HaMashiach to give them the identity of Kehunah. And Kehunah is a very fragile institution, very fragile. Particularly, I discovered it in the United States. When I became a rabbi in the United States, and in Boston, and the first wedding I performed, so the husband was all dressed up with a beautiful carnation, his lapel. A nice boy, he made impression of a nice boy. So then I began to fill in the Kehuna. I said, you have to identify yourself. Cain, Levi, or Yisrael. So I met with a quizzical look, with astonishment. Well, he didn't understand what I was talking about. So I was astonished. But I recovered from my astonishment. You know why? For the majority of the Jews in America, the vast majority, doesn't know what Kehunah is. Absolutely does not know what Kehunah is. Meet a Jew on the street, or a student on a campus. I don't mean those Balichur. I'm not speaking about Balichur. I'm speaking about every Jew in the United States. I mean, the youth on the campus. Ask them. Well, they are turning leave Israel and they wouldn't understand you. Not only they wouldn't have an answer, they wouldn't understand what you're talking to. And that's why I always tell the people, Ktanim, Gdelim, whether they reached maturity or they didn't reach maturity, to go up to Duchel. All children go up to Duchel. It's no time now to play around with Rashi versus Stasis, where there is Chinuch and Kehunah, and Birkas Kampai. Because the whole institution of Kehunah is actually about to disintegrate and collapse. So it's just a terrible problem. So, in Emor, there is no promise by God that Kehunah will exist forever. No? The laws of Kehunah were formulated. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nation did not disclose to the people whether Kehunah is going to exist, to continue, or the people, or the Jews, who will defile the Kehunah the way they've defiled many things. There is a law of Kehunah. Emor is a parsha which deals with the laws of Kehunah. It's not a parsha of the promise that Kehunah will exist. This was Yecheskel's job. Yecheskel said, before I discuss the laws of Kehunah, what a king is supposed to do, what he's not supposed to do, let me say one thing. Kehunah will exist forever. I understand the menace to Kehunah. I understand the difficulties with which we will meet. I understand that it will be very hard and tough on our part to preserve the purity of Kehunah. But it will be preserved. Before Yecheskel began to tell the people the laws of Kehunah, he says, a small group of Kohanim. They came, their ancestor was the Tzodek. But this group distinguished itself mainly by what? By its steadfast loyalty. Steadfast loyalty and complete total dedication to the laws of Kehunah. That they served God at a time at which the people, the majority of the people, lost the understanding for Kedushah's Kehunah. It is bnei Yisrael, B'olai, Heimo yikrefu olai l'shoseni, V'heimo yoveyu al Mikdoshi, V'heimo yakrivu al shulchani, V'shomu es mishmeres harishon. And believe me that we need such a promise nowadays as well. But I believe that Yecheskel's promise is good for our times too. Because Chas v'Sholem, if Kehunah should be forgotten, then one important aspect of Kedushas Yisrael will drop out. Will disappear, will vanish. Now, there's another aspect which Yecheskel has developed with regard to Kehunah, which the Torah mentions it, but not in the Meir, but with this Abracha. But apparently, Chazal, when they introduced the Haftarah of Yecheskel, so wanted the people to know immediately what is required of them. I'll ask you a simple question. It's aspect number 2. Number 1, Yecheskel introduced the promise, not only law of Kehunah, but the promise of Kehunah, that Kehunah is a permanent institution. Next, what did Yecheskel introduce? That we found it important that the prophecy of Yecheskel became the Haftarah of Emor. He actually redefined the task of Kehunah. He redefined it. He reformulated it. Now let me ask you, what is the sense, what is the source of Kedushah's Kehunah? Why are the Kohanim superior as far as Kedusha is concerned to the Levim and Israel? What is the source of Kedushah's Kehunah? To what task is the case, should a Kohen be totally committed? And what actually aspect he should unreservedly dedicate himself? And what is the answer? What is the source of Kedushah's Kehunah? In what respect does he possess superiority over the ordinary Jew? Of course, the answer is, he's ministering, he's participating in the Aveda, in the service of God, or ministering unto God. He's the origin of his specific image. His superior status in the community. And the Pesach says in the Meir, Kilechem lekov u'makriv v'hoya kedesh. Because the bread of God they do offer, and therefore they shall be holy. The holiness of the Kohen, according is a result of his steady engagement in worship, in the cultic service of God. It is the dedication to Aveda and Korbanos that generates the Kedusha. I have one question which should be answered. Kohanim, you take all the Kohanim. No, I don't know how many. I mean, you have in Shiur, I know, in Shiur, you have numbers as far as the Kohanim are concerned. And a report about about the statistics. But we know that the Kenyans were divided into how many, I had to many mishmeres, 24 mishmeres divisions. So if you have divided the Kehuna in 24 mishmeres, it means that each Kohen could do Aveda only 2 weeks a year. 2 weeks a year. Because once in every 24 weeks. Alright? There are a few months differential, but anyway it is about 2 weeks every year. Moreover, the Mishmor was divided into subdivisions, Bate Av. Each Bet Av served 2 days a year. In other words, the Kohen used to serve only 2 days a year. That's all. So let me ask, what did the Kohen do the rest of the year? What did he do the rest of the year? So you will say nothing? So the answer is, so why do I have to give him Matnas Kehuna? The whole idea, the whole system of Matnas Kehuna is based upon the fact that the Kenyans were preoccupied with their service in the Beis HaMikdash, and therefore could not earn a living by their own efforts. But but it does not, it's not in accordance with the statistics we just mentioned. The question was asked by whom? This question. It's not a new one. Who asked this question? Somebody did ask this question. It's too obvious. Moshe Rabbeinu. Where did he ask this question? In the Zeis HaBrocha, in his last testament, he addressed to the people on the day of his death, of his departure from us. So he redefined Kehuna, the task of Kehunim. He says, "U'lelei Roma, Yeru mishpatecho leYaakov, v'seiroscho leYisrael." The task of the Kohen is to teach, not to minister. Minister is a second-rate task. Teaching is the main job into which a Kohen must be engaged. Teaching. Yeru mishpatecho leYaakov, you should instruct your laws, instruct the Yaakov in your laws, v'seiroscho leYisrael. In addition to that, they have another cultic job, namely to minister unto the Lord. But this is the second task. The first task is Yeru mishpatecho leYaakov v'seiroscho leYisrael. The Kedusha of Kehuna consists in teaching the people, not in ministering, not exclusively ministering to the Lord, to God, but in teaching the people. We say, and the Kedusha of Kehuna consists in a Kedusha of Masere, of Torah Shebaal Peh. They taught the people, they were the Rosh Yeshiva, they were the Melamdim, they were the instructors, they were the teachers. As a matter of fact, a Kohen who does not teach the people, his Kedusha is incomplete. A Yisrael who teaches the people, he is engaged in the proper propagation of God's word. He is engaged in that. This Yisrael has the status of a Kohen. There is some Kedusha. And perhaps the main source of Kedusha's Kehuna, which is actually the of an educational character, namely the act of teaching. Did Yecheskel say it? The Sami Yeru, Yadil, that's exactly. The Cheskel already has the second, the main source of Kedusha for Kenim is teaching. And as I emphasized before, it means, in other words, a Kein who doesn't teach. Actually, is not loses, but his Kedusha is not exalted the way it should have been, and a Yisrael who teaches shares in Kedushah's Kehunah. This is the reason for inserting Parshas Meyades in Parshas Emor, which is very difficult to understand. You start Parshas Emor. What do you have in Parshas Emor? First of all, Tumas Mes. A king cannot defile himself with a dead body. Number two, Isoloshi, whom a king is allowed to marry, whom is not allowed to marry. Next, that Balimumin should not be offered on the Mizbeach. Again, it's addressed, the law is addressed to the Kehanim, because the Kehanim used to decide which, what is fit to be an offer, and what is unfit to be an offer. Suddenly, we have no transition. We realize that the Torah interrupts to tell us about the laws of Kehunah, and begins to tell us a story about Kviyos Me'adim, the fixing of the Yom Tovim. What has it got to do with the previous chapter? What's the answer? The answer is that who did fix the Me'adim? To whom did the Torah entrust the Kviyos Me'adim? To whom? To the scholars, to the teachers, to the Sanhedrin. Who are they? The Kehanim. That the Torah interrupts suddenly, because after Parshas Me'adim, the Torah spoke about the Kehan who ministers to the Almighty. Now the Torah tells us something else. Yeah, but the Kehan has another job, another task. He's dedicated to another, he's committed to something else, namely, to scholarship and teaching. And this is clear, this identical is clear, Smialim. Does Yecheskel do it? Mention it? Well, what does Yecheskel say? Okay. The Kriyas Me'adim. Me'adai v'shapsesai, even the Shabbatah. The Kriyas Me'adim is performed by the Sanhedrin, by the scholars, by the teachers, Me'ere Umah of the nation. And that's why it is the job of the Kehan. What else? What else? Yes, Victor. Something else was assigned to the Kehanim. Namely what? Okay. Yeah. Namely, what? Apparently, to teach people on an abstract level, just teach people theoretically, theory is not good enough. Whoever knows, what should I say, the mood or the how Yehadus wanted the people to act. Of course, the first job is Vishnantam Levanecho, means to teach people. But Vishnantam Levanecho does not mean to teach them at an abstract level. I mean, theory. Vishnantam Levanecho refers also to teach people how to act, and particularly the principles of justice. There is a guru mitreish, don't be afraid of anybody. And you should remember that mishpat lekimu, judgment is up to the Almighty. The fact is that the task of the king, so the Rambam has defined the task of the king is a twofold one. First of all, to defend the land of Israel, to defend simply. If military action is necessary, the king should do it. And secondly, lishber zreya reshoim, to break the arm of the strongholds, of the evildoers, to break the arm. This is administration of justice. And that's exactly what a king is supposed to do. And I want you to tell you, I want you to understand. We have many stories about Rabbonim Afol, many stories. Germany has its stories, Lithuania has its stories, and so forth about Rabbonim Afol. The stories do not revolve so much about their scholarship. Yes, we have many stories like that. But this is not the main topic which actually has motivated us to tell stories. But the main topic was their sensitive conscience, their sense of justice that the Rov possessed. For instance, there are many stories about my grandfather, and please, I'm not somehow trying to sell you my grandfather. First of all, he doesn't need to be sold. He doesn't need to be sold. And secondly, I'm not a chassid, in the sense that I tell stories in order to glorify and magnify the person. But my grandfather, and there are many stories about his intellect. He had a great intellect, no doubt about it. He had, in my opinion, he had one of the strongest intellects that lived at the turn of the century. And not only among Jews, but among Goyim as well. His intellect was tremendous. Had he been a philosopher, he would have changed, or a scientist in any field, he would have changed in this particular discipline upside down, completely. But I'll tell you frankly, this commands respect, but I'm not impressed by it. What could you do of me? He had an excellent head. He was a genius, no doubt about it. Abstract thinker and a revolutionary as far as interpretation of halachic is concerned. He revolutionized the halachic. My father once told me I'm still acting like a chassid. My father has told me that if not for Acharei, there wouldn't have been a possibility to teach modern young men with a good training in science halachic. He made it possible to teach halachic. Halachic can be taught to anyone, even those who are advanced in logical analysis. We find that the halachic is just as exalted and perhaps as abstract as the most advanced mathematical logic or analytical logic. But what I'm not impressed by that. This was given to him by the Almighty. Some people present with a beautiful, precious gift, but some people doesn't give anything. This is not what I am. I'm impressed by his heroism as far as social justice is concerned. If there was a real socialist, a real one, not a Marxist socialist, but a real socialist, with a more sensitive conscience and sensitive heart, And with unlimited courage, he wasn't. And I'm saying it in order to explain to you what the Torah has demanded of the Kohen. Yeah. I'll tell you, I have many stories. He actually fought. The ones who are accused, I'm not trying to mislead you. There was a strike in Brisk. Who could strike in Brisk? They didn't manufacture anything. But one article they manufactured, namely matzah. So those who worked in the matzah shops went out to strike. So Reb Chaim supported it. He collected money in order to feed the people who were on strike. It was Brisk. It was not New York or Boston in 1979. It was Brisk in the turn of the century. He almost lost his rabbanis. But he did not deviate. I'll give you another example. The halacha is, the law is, that if Rahman al-Islam, two people die the same day, so the woman has been buried first, and the man afterwards. The reason for it is a different story. So it happened in Brisk, that his most outstanding friend of Reb Chaim was a great scholar, as a balabos, was a great scholar. He actually was responsible for the fact that Reb Chaim was elected, Rabbi, the scholar was never being elected, died on a certain moment. At the same time, the poor woman in the Brisk ghetto died. And it was in the winter, the day short. So the Kedusha figured out that the Ravaya, as far as the burial of the poor woman is concerned, it would make no difference whether she would be buried at night or in the morning. In Lithuania we used to bury dead at night, or in the morning, because no one will come to the funeral anyway. Whatever, Chaim Zalman Lipschitz was his name. I mean, he was the pillar of the community. In the morning, you have a big send-off. But in the evening, not many people will come. And they decided to bury him first and to prepare him for burial first. So Reb Chaim heard the story. He sent a messenger to them to have a Kedusha to stop preparing to Chaim Zalman Lipschitz, but to bury the poor woman first. And if his burial will take place at night, they can't help it. So the Kedusha ignored his orders, instructions, and continued to prepare the woman for the Chaim Zalman Lipschitz for burial. So Chaim took his cane, put on his coat, and told the shaman. The shaman told me. The shaman actually was present there. He told me this stuff. Told Shamus, come on. And he went to the house of Chaim Zalman Lipschitz. His greatest friend, his most outstanding friend, who sacrificed himself actually in order to elect Reb Chaim the rabbi of Brisk. He went to the house and told the Kedusha to move in and to go to the ghetto and bury the woman first. This is tremendous courage. Not the courage because people will did criticize him, or he lost a few of his supporters. It is courage because he acted against himself. He himself mourned the passing of his best friend. He sacrificed his own self, his own emotions. After all, he reciprocated his friendship. And he couldn't help it. He was a prisoner of the law. And one has to sometimes have a lot of courage in order to be a prisoner of the law and to carry the law out. I can tell you hundreds of such stories. There are no mixing, no miracles. But people, I mean, a great man in theory, a great man with a great intellect, should also have a great heart and a sensitive heart. He has particularly courage. And that's exactly what the Torah demanded from the king. Does Yechezkel say it? Does Yechezkel say it? Va'oriv eino yamdo. Wherever there is litigation, wherever there is conflict, wherever two people disagree with each other, and the Rav has to intervene, is eino yamdo, they should stand upright. Not giving, not compromise, but enforce and implement the law. This is the second. The king is a teacher. He is also his job is to enforce, to administer justice. And that's exactly what. And then, what else? What is the third aspect which the Novi has formulated as far as Kehuna is concerned? Not a Novi, but actually this is the Chumash Torah Shemekshad. Yes. I beg your pardon? The king is retired in the Torah. You mean I didn't hear you? What? Tell me the Torah, Gil. I believe that the third principle is to be found in the Haftarot of Tazria. Who remembers the Haftarot of Tazria? All right, you have it? What is the story? The story is there was Naaman. There was Naaman who was a leper. There was Naaman who was a leper. And he came to Exile to Elisha, and Elisha healed him, cured him of leprosy. Elisha, and Gehazi, what was the opinion? That Elisha should accept remuneration and a fee for his miraculous job, and Elisha refused to accept, and Gehazi, disobeying Elisha's orders, ran after Naaman and got some gifts from him, and he was driven out by Elisha from his house, and Gehazi himself became a leper. This is the Haftarot, correct? What has it got to do with the parsha? The parsha speaks about the Tzera, correct? What does the story of Elisha got to do with the parsha? With the parsha of Tazria. Tazria is the parsha of Exile, correct? Yeah. And the Haftarot is about the Tzera who was cured by a Jewish prophet, by Elisha. Is this so important to know, about Naaman? What's important here is the refusal on the part of Elisha to accept remuneration or a fee for his curing, of Naaman. Why did he refuse? Or why did he refuse? Because the main task of the Novi and the king is to enhance the prestige of the Haftarot among Jews and non-Jews alike. Naaman was very impressed by the miraculous deed on the part of Elisha. As a matter of fact, he was ready, to convert. And he asked Elisha about Avodah Zarah. Because when he walks into the temple, he's the king of Aram, he has to bow when the king bows before the idol. So he asked Elisha whether he's allowed to do so or not. But Elisha considered the deed and the part of Gehazi as wrong, because the accepting of gifts would undermine the high prestige and respect which Elisha, which Naaman had for Elisha. The job of the king, of the king is like that of the Navi. Lekadesh Shem Yisrael, Rabbim. And that's exactly what Gehazi misunderstood. And that is what the Navi has, and that is the book of Vayikra. See, the book of the redemption, of the final redemption, it's also the book of Kehunah. It's not just a minister in Kehunah, not just a group which engages in cultic activities. No, it's more than that, by far more. It's a group of teachers, it's a group of administrators of justice, people with a sensitive heart, sensitive mind, and people who engage in chesed and don't expect any compensation, any remuneration for that part, of the chesed. And let me at the end, in conclusion, say the following. Our Torah has been exposed to attacks since the days of revelation on Mount Sinai. The Torah was the target for most vicious attacks, abuse, and ridicule. Maimonides, in his letter to Teman, to the Shiur and Teman, to the community in Yemen, says that our enemies or our antagonists are planning to destroy us in two ways, in a double manner. Physically, of course, Hitler tried it, just in our time, as well as spiritually, to erase Jewish identity. And Maimonides says that nevertheless, no matter how strong the conspiracy is to destroy the Jew, he will not succeed, he'll fail in achieving this objective. Maimonides in the Gerastim. In the close apostle of Isaiah, Kol Pri Olayich V'Yitzlach, any weapon formed against thee will not be successful. V'Choloshe Tokum Mitach LaMishpat, and every tongue which you will sit in judgment over thee, Tarshi, you will condemn it. It means our antagonist will fail as far as both plans are concerned. They'll never destroy the Jew physically, nor will they make the Jew forget his identity. Not even nowadays, I have hoped that the Jew, there was in 1945, after the Holocaust, became known to the world, the Jew. I mustn't say I had grave doubts, but I was very pessimistic, very sad about the prospect of the Jew to survive. Now somehow, of course, a big role is played by the Medinas Israel. But there's a tremendous role, right? It is somehow the symbol of indestructibility of the Jew, spiritually as well as physically. It's an old story. Maimonides did not say anything new, and we all hope that the tongue which sits in judgment over us, as well as the weapon which our enemies forge against us, will fail. However, if there is a book, if the whole Torah was described, there is no other book which was described by our antagonists as the book of Leviticus, of the code of the priests. since the days, what shall I say, of mere Christianity. The way Chazal, there was an organized attack against Kehunah and the book of Kehunah, namely Sefer Vayikra. You are even among Bible critics, when they come to Sefer Vayikra, so they enjoyed the opportunity very much, the opportunity to abuse and to ridicule and to destroy with their cynicism and sarcasm the book, the Sefer Vayikra of because by destroying Vayikra, the book of Kehunah, they destroy Kehunah. By destroying Kehunah, they destroy the Beis HaMikdash. By destroying the Beis HaMikdash, we destroy all the hopes which we have to come back into the Beis HaMikdash. By destroying the Beis HaMikdash and our hopes, Moshiach, they destroy also the Jewish identity. The people to whom the land was promised are not the Jews, but some other people who know identity. And how did we react to this, to our enemies and antagonists in this regard? How did we react? What did we do throughout the ages? We have a funny method how to react to such attacks, vicious attacks, to false accusations, to misinterpretation, and to lying. We have a funny approach. The Ramban, in his letter, you all know the phrase. Let me paraphrase the Ramban. The Ramban in his letter upon his arrival in Eretz Yisrael, this is the last letter we have from him, we don't know where it disappeared. He writes to the son about the desolation and the churban which prevails in Eretz Yisrael. And there is his famous statement, Kol HaKodesh v'yeser chorev v'yeser. Whatever is the most holy to us is most desolate. And I can say this was the, what shall I say, the approach of the Jew to all attacks, on the part of his enemies. Kol ma shemulag v'yeser, anything which is most ridiculed the most, any other spiritual value or Jewish institution which is the most abused the most, is choving aleinu v'yeser, is dear, and we cherish it the more. Interesting is that Vayikra was chosen to be read between Pesach and Shavuos. This is the Sefer Vayikra. Shmini is the first Shabbos after Vayikra, and before we are ready to celebrate Shavuos, we have to read the Kedushah in the Chukosai. We read not only the Kedushah, but the parshiyos Bamidbar as well. And it means that when we go to Har Sinai and Shavuos, we have the whole Torah in our hand, but in particular, we have Sefer Vayikra. And this is not, and the minhag is not just, it's an old minhag, it's mentioned in Medrash, that to start with a child, to start teaching a child, Sefer Vayikra. This is that book. It's the book of Kehunah. And every Jew should act as if he were a king. After all, Kehunah was not given to a single person, to a single tribe. But recently, Mamlechas Kenan and Kodesh will be a kingdom of Kenan. Every Jew can become a king. How can he become a king? By teaching, by administering justice, and by engaging in chesed. And Mekadosh Shem Shamayim. That's all.